Lurid details of the murder of reputed Ghost Town boss Candice Flowers' execution of the 26-year-old Mayflower Street resident set off a series of violent events in its wake, most notably an altercation following his funeral which resulted in sheer bedlam in that Southside neighborhood.
Gerald Shiny Tillett was assumed to have taken over the leadership of the George Street gang after his brother, Shelton Pinky Tillett, seen alongside him in white, was. But one had the sense that the man called Shiny never really embraced that leadership. And if he was the leader, it's only because he had that last name.
Whether or not there is a possible connection between the four cases is yet to be made known. In theory, however, relatives of Leon Burgess strongly believe that he was done away with by members of the PIV gang, possibly in retaliation for the execution of Myron Smith on June 30th. Coincidentally, Flowers, a known figure within the ranks of PIV, was shot multiple times during an attempt on his life the night after Burgess's.
It was reported that a truce was had between members of the Sapal and the SSG gang territories. But was there really a truce, or was it just a political sham? I sought to get into the details of this truce, only to find out that money was allegedly exchanged for the camera and perhaps even the political points. Kevin Alvarez, who goes by the name Motto, is from the Sapal territory, and according to him, he was lured at the location with a promise of payment. He says, however, that after the entire scene was caught on camera, Philip Willoughby, who promised to pay him, was not answering his phone, and he is yet to collect.
We don't need nobody to tell we to do that for we job in the hood. We do that every day. We always talk to the youth there, try to show them the right way, show them where right for wrong, and only there for listen, take in for a week as we go through the experience, we know what it's like to be in the streets.
Belize, a small Central American nation once known primarily for its tropical beauty and colonial heritage, has over the past few decades become a battleground for deadly urban warfare. Rooted in decades of poverty, political instability, and the legacy of U.S. deportation policies, Belize's gang landscape today mirrors that of Los Angeles in the 1980s and 90s. The infamous Bloods and Crips, born in South Central Los Angeles, found new life in Belize when Belizean nationals deported from the United States brought back not just American accents, but entire gang ideologies, hand signs, and rivalries. These deportees seeded the rise of Belizean sets like George Street Bloods,
Bullet,
Ghost Town Crips, and Peace in the Village, forging a deadly gang culture that quickly adapted to the local environment. The U.S. export of gang warfare intensified by transnational drug routes, political neglect, and social disenfranchisement has reshaped Belize City, particularly its embattled south side, into a zone where youth are pulled into cycles of retaliation, drug trade, and territorial violence. What began as transplanted affiliations has evolved into a uniquely Belizean gang war one marked by assassinations, turf feuds, and a trail of bodies that continues to grow.
Gerald Shiny Tillett was assumed to have taken over the leadership of the George Street gang after his brother, Shelton Pinky Tillett, seen alongside him in white, was. But one had the sense that the man called Shiny never really embraced that leadership. And if he was the leader, it's only because he had that last name, synonymous with George Street.
Government stupid unit. That's why I think GSU a stupid unit. After that squad, Dean Barrow that squad.
I was sitting on my veranda, and then I saw a young man came in full black, stood behind him, took out a gun, and started fire a shot.
The indiscriminate gunfire left Tillett mortally injured when a round from the salvo penetrated his temple. Deputy Commander of the Dangriga Police Station, Assistant Superintendent Mark Stevens, confirmed that the alleged assailant, identified as Nicolas Swazo, had also been injured during the incident. Another person had indeed produced a licensed firearm and shot Swazo in the back. It seems to be a long-standing feud between the George Street Gang and the Southside Gangsters, SSG, bitter rivals with a history of enmity that goes back several years. Swazo's profile includes his affiliation with SSG.
He's originally from Dangriga Town, but we believe we are getting information that he had migrated to Belize City, has been living in Belize City for some years, and have some association with one of the Southside gang.
August 26, 2015, Swazo walked free after being on remand for the senseless Mennonite businessman Gwendolyn Reimer, who was shot and killed in 2011 during a robbery at his place of business on the Philip Golson Highway. Tillett, on the other hand, was one of several known leaders within the hierarchy of the George Street gang. He rose to prominence as head of the criminal outfit when Shelton Pinky Tillett, the then leader of George Street, was dispatched in a hail of bullets almost 4 years ago to date. Shiny, however, seemingly maintained a low profile as boss of one of Belize's most notorious street gangs.
I forgot charge sheet for hang pa
George
Street.
On the streets, I don't got no charge sheets.
I forgot charge sheet for hang pa George Street. Think I play a real thing. I play a thing.
That point that a single gunman came walking from the direction King Street and opened fire upon the two young men who were sitting on the stairs at that location. The police have retrieved 15 expended 9mm shells, and both persons were hospitalized.
The George Street Gang is a feared blood-affiliated street gang based on George Street in the south side of Belize City. Under the leadership of brothers Sheldon Pinky Tillett and Gerald Shiny Tillett Sr., the gang rose to prominence in the 2000s for its ruthless tactics and dominance over local turf. Pinky Tillett's assassination in 2012, allegedly carried out by rival gangsters of the Taylor's Alley gang, sparked a wave of violent retaliation across Belize City. Just a year later, the discovery of 4 George Street gang members with slashed throats was widely attributed to Belize's gang suppression unit, further escalating tensions. George Street gang's primary rival has long been the Taylor's Alley gang, located nearby in central Belize City. The animosity between the two blood sets was deeply personal and deadly, particularly following Pinky's deletion. The George Street gang has also clashed with other groups, including the Southside Gangsters, over territory and control of drug corners. In a surprising twist during the early 2010s, the George Street gang briefly allied with the Town Crips, forming an unusual but powerful partnership that controlled much of the street-level action for a time. The gang also participated in several government-mediated truces, most notably a 2010 ceasefire involving the Kraal Road gang. But these efforts were often short-lived. Criminally, the George Street gang is involved in drug trafficking, extortion, and armed robbery. Their members are known for brazen shootings, ambushes, and attacks on rivals and civilians alike. Domino parlors and street corners within their turf often become scenes of bloodshed. The Belizean authorities, especially the gang suppression unit, have targeted the George Street gang heavily, arresting many of its members and leaders in crackdowns throughout the 2010s. Despite these efforts, the George Street gang legacy continues to shape life on the south side, where residents still live under the threat of violence, extortion, and gang warfare.
I'm here today to say, that the gang life that I've been in for the past 26 years, that ain't the life, and I think it's time for us, we as leaders, to make a change and to stand up and say, to help the police, especially gang suppression unit, to stand strong and work with each leaders of the community so that we can make a change.
All we want is, to uplift the era, uplift the youths there in the community, because the youths there need a lead job to uplift themselves, because nothing happen for their league to youths. And the youths want to eat too. So then, besides that, if they put in place lead jobs to the youths there, they will have changes, and that if they cooperate, that will happen. Mom, star, all we want is a job. We don't come here to get a bruise or get a man no kind of hard time. We just have to make life easy for all of we.
Lurid details of the reputed ghost town boss Candice Flowers in March of last year remained in the headlines for several weeks. The execution of the 26-year-old Mayflower Street resident set off a series of violent events in its wake, most notably an altercation following his funeral which resulted in sheer bedlam in that Southside neighborhood. In the weeks after the pre-dawn attack, during which Flowers was gunned down on Mopan Street, police arrested and charged 25-year-old Kevin Bowden. Bowden was arraigned despite his family's staunch belief that their loved ones was at the hands of GSU personnel. Tonight, the accused has walked away from that indictment.
The Ghost Town Crips are a Crip-affiliated street gang based in the Mayflower Street area on Belize City's Southside, an area often referred to as Ghost Town due to its deteriorating conditions and abandoned properties. The gang has been active for decades and rose to national attention in 2014 when longtime leader Roger Anthony publicly renounced gang life. After 26 years in the streets, Anthony stunned the country by stepping away from violence, removing his gang tattoos, and calling for peace. His bold move briefly sparked hope for change, but the Ghost Town Crips remained active and dangerous. Despite Anthony's exit, the gang continued to experience internal conflict and violence. In 2018, Ghost Town leader Candice Flowers was shot and met his demise reportedly after venturing into rival territory, possibly as part of an escalating feud. Kevin Bowden was later arrested and charged with the deletion, underscoring the deadly stakes of leadership within Belize's gang world. Criminally, Ghost Town Crips have been involved in drug trafficking, armed robbery, and frequent shootings. Their turf around Mayflower Street has seen deadly flare-ups, some of which have spilled into public spaces and resulted in the deaths of innocent bystanders. While Anthony's renunciation of gang life brought attention to the suffering and fear endured by Southside residents, his plea for peace was not enough to stop the violence. In the years since, Ghost Town has continued to contribute to the cycle of gang warfare and community instability in Belize City.
Police are tonight no closer to unraveling the mysteries involving the deaths of David Copius and Dwayne Hilton, as well as the attempted of Edwin Drive Flowers. Whether or not there is a possible connection between the four cases is yet to be made known. In theory, however, relatives of Leon Burgess strongly believe that he was done away with by members of the PIV gang, possibly in retaliation for the execution of Myron Smith on June 30th. Coincidentally, Flowers, a known figure within the ranks of PIV, was shot multiple times during an attempt on his life the night after Burgess's murder. The violent episode unfolded at Flowers' Penn Road address on Tuesday, where he was socializing with his common-law wife and another individual. As luck would have it, he has survived the violent attack.
Peace in the Village is a paradoxically named but notoriously violent street gang that emerged from Belize City's Mahogany Street and complex areas in the late 1990s. Originally an offshoot of the Bloods, Peace in the Village adopted its ironic name while establishing a firm grip on parts of the Southside, including Oleander Street and the Fabers Road housing projects. Over the years, the gang evolved into one of Belize's most organized and feared factions, known for their territorial violence, extortion networks, and drug distribution. Despite its name suggesting calm, Peace in the Village has been deeply entrenched in deadly feuds with neighboring gangs. Among its most bitter rivalries was the ongoing conflict with the Sapal Street gang, marked by a series of violent exchanges including the 2015 demise of a PIV affiliate on Oleander Street. The feud with Botchka Town, also called Botchka Lands, was similarly intense. That rivalry led to a string of retaliatory deletions that forced authorities to step in. Following the September 2021 demise of a 17-year-old Peace in the Village member, police arranged a sit-down between Peace in the Village and Botchka Town leaders. This mediation resulted in a fragile but significant truce. Peace in the Village has also clashed with the Southside Gangsters, with local experts suggesting both groups see each other as competitors for influence and political favor.
Mr. Williams, Mr. Jan Finnegan and Mr. Nure encourage us for while he changing our life, make we leave violence alone and think positive and leave negative behind. and that's what we do.
Right. Now you have, influence within your community. Is this something that you are going to spread with, especially the younger kids who are in your neighborhood, that they should take up these kinds of opportunities?
Yes, man, definitely. We do that every day. We don't need nobody to tell we to do that. That's for we job in the hood. We do that every day. We always talk to the youth there, try to show them the right way. Show them where right for wrong. Down there if you listen, take in for a week, because we go through the experience. We know what it's like to be in the street.
If I were to go and question every gang member on the streets of Belize City and ask them what their current gang affiliation is, you know what the answer is going to be? I have changed. And you wonder how they have changed, but they still continue to commit crime. So I don't buy that as much as, yes, I would like to believe what Mr. Underwood is saying. His behavior has proven contrary. Yes, there are some people who are out there and they give a front, and behind that front, they're committing crime, and that we cannot allow that to happen.
The Southside Gangsters are a Belize City street gang operating mainly in the Cesar Ridge Road and West Canal areas of the South Side. Known for their deep roots in central Belize City neighborhoods, the Southside Gangsters has gained notoriety not only for its violent turf wars, but also for its alleged political affiliations. The gang has frequently been associated with youth groups tied to political movements, an association that has intensified rivalries with other factions, especially the George Street Gang. Between 2010 and 2012, the Southside Gangsters and George Street Gang were locked in an intense feud involving multiple shootouts, with each accusing the other of benefiting from political favoritism. The situation boiled over in 2011 when the Belizean government organized a citywide gang truce. The Southside Gangsters leaders publicly expressed outrage at being excluded, claiming the ceasefire was brokered primarily with George Street Gang and its allies. Their fiery statements, including a direct challenge to then Prime Minister Dean Barrow, highlighted the gang's sense of marginalization and further inflamed tensions. Criminally, the Southside Gangsters members have faced a variety of charges ranging from extortion and robberies to firearm offenses. In July 2023, police arrested Alex Underwood, whom authorities identified as the leader of the Southside Gangsters Cesar Ridge Road faction, on charges of unlawful gang membership. The gang is believed to run protection rackets and extort money from small businesses in its territory. While the number of publicized shootouts involving the Southside Gangsters may be fewer than those of larger groups like George Street, violence attributed to the gang has left an undeniable mark on the surrounding community. Residents near Cesar Ridge and Steadfast Avenue frequently report spikes in thefts and threats of retaliation. Some business owners have admitted to paying protection money out of fear.
In the local news this week, it was reported that a truce was had between members of the Sapal and the SSG gang territories. But was there really a truce, or was it just a political sham? Kevin Alvarez, who goes by the name Motto, is from the Sapal territory, and according to him, he was lured at the location with a promise of payment. He says, however, that after the entire scene was caught on camera, Philip Willoughby, who promised to pay him, was not answering his phone, and he is yet to collect. So we went to Willoughby to get some answers. Is your son and your nephew gang members?
No, my son don't share. I know the pint finger and I know sweat fever for my son. I know my kids them. When my kids they need anything and they hungry and broke, me that the one who send money for them. Chester, I can't go down the office and beg them for $1 for buy bread for my picnic or sugar or egg.
So you believe that they were wrongfully accused of being the members of a gang?
Yes, I know.
The Sapal Street Gang, based in Belize City's south side around Sapal Street, is a deeply entrenched and long-standing gang with a notorious history of violence and territorial warfare. Its influence has grown over the years through a series of high-profile shootings, feuds, and criminal operations. One of the most well-known affiliates was Glenn Gambus Williams, who survived multiple assassination attempts before being executed in May 2016 outside a barbecue stand. His murder, which came after repeated death threats and prior injuries, triggered public outcry and suspicion over the police's handling of the case. Sapal Street has also been home to other influential figures like Sofo Soup Williams, who survived a targeted shooting in 2014, cementing the gang's reputation for resilience and internal loyalty. The gang's history is marked by brutal rivalries with several factions, including the George Street Gang, Southside Gangsters, and Peace in the Village. One of the most violent episodes occurred in early 2014, when a Sapal gunman opened fire on a Southside residence, injuring several young George Street Gang members and deleting 20-year-old Ryan Arnold, an innocent bystander. Witnesses reported the attacker yelling, "We're from Sapal," making clear the shooting was part of an ongoing feud. Tensions with other groups have been so severe that in 2015, police were forced to intervene in mediation talks involving Sapal, PIV, and Bachka Town, highlighting the gang's destabilizing effect on Southside neighborhoods. Sapal members are heavily involved in drug trafficking, as well as armed robbery, extortion, and assaults. The gang suppression unit has frequently raided properties tied to Sapal, recovering firearms and narcotics. In 2022, the gang made headlines again after a leaked audio recording allegedly featuring a known Sapal member surfaced online. The speaker admitted to committing multiple deletions and robberies in the Ladyville area. Although the individual was identified by authorities, extradition barriers have stalled any formal charges, keeping the suspect beyond the reach of Belizean courts.
That followed the fatal shooting of two men, one of which was the notorious leader of Town Crips gang. The brazen 34-year-old Crips gang boss Junior Tremino and 19-year-old Christopher Calderon had exited the Louisiana football field, where a football championship had culminated. Soon after, more than a dozen gunshots were heard. Shot dead 21-year-old Town Crips gang member Jose Duffy Medina laid motionless off an alley on Mahogany Street in Orange Rock Town on a bicycle heading to a house he was renting for about 3 weeks, a stash house away from those who were gunning for him. As he entered the alley leading to the house, the gunman alighted a vehicle which sped off. Reports are that Medina was shot to the head and died on the spot. His girlfriend, 28-year-old Lucia Luna, was also shot. We are told that after hearing the shots, she ran out of the house and was shot to the abdomen to be gang-related, specifically to the worsening internal gang war between members of the Town Crips gang. This gang war is believed to have been sparked by the 21-year-old Albert Vargas, who was July 10th while he was in a parked car along the Belize Corozal Road near Landis and Son. Inside the car with him was Medina. 24-year-old Belize City resident Nisani Daniel Garcia was charged for Vargas. Fast forward 40 days after, death came for Town Crips gang boss Junior Tremino on August 20th. Tremino and 19-year-old Christopher Calderon were exiting the Louisiana football field and heading to Saratoga Street when the gang war worsens. Junior Tremino, Albert Vargas, and Jose Medina have been associates for years. In January 2017, the trio was arrested and charged for drug trafficking after a high-speed chase led Orange Rock police to more than 4,000 grams of marijuana inside the car.
The Bachka Town Gang, also known as Bachka Lands, is a Crip-affiliated gang operating near the Belize City Civic Center on the city's south side, controlling Bachka Town Road and the surrounding blocks. The gang's territory borders that of the rival Peace in the Village gang, an arrangement that has fueled a history of deadly confrontations. The Bachka Town Gang has long been involved in street-level drug trafficking and is frequently implicated in armed robberies and turf-related violence. In March 2016, Belize's gang suppression unit seized nearly 1 kilogram of Mary from 2 vacant lots near the gang's turf. Police said was tied to Bachka Town members. Violent incidents around their zone are common. In April 2019, a man was gunned down near the Civic Center, a deletion widely believed to be connected to Bachka Town or its rivals, reflecting the area's reputation for drive-by shootings and gang hits. The gang's long-standing feud with PIV erupted again in 2021 following the demise of a 17-year-old Bachka Town affiliate, prompting Belizean police to mediate a peace summit between both crews. This effort resulted in a September 2021 truce, seen as a necessary step to reduce the violent rates in the city. Despite this ceasefire, Bachka Town has no known enduring alliances and is considered an independent Crip outfit. Periodic arrests of its members, often caught with weapons and drugs near the Civic Center, as to the gang's ongoing criminal activity. Beyond the violence, the gang has a destabilizing effect on the community. Residents routinely report hearing gunfire, and local youth organizations warn of Bachka Town's role in pulling school dropouts into the drug trade. Authorities view the group as a key driver of Belize City's urban violence, with their involvement in turf wars and retaliatory killings making peace in this area essential to broader public safety.
Sometime around 8:30 last night, police visited the yard at the corner of Hines Street and Kraal Road, where they gathered information that Mr. Gary Young was transported to the KHMH with gunshot injuries. We understand that Mr. Young was in a yard with other persons socializing when Matthew Guy arrived at that place along with another person and opened fire on the crowd. Unfortunately, Mr. Young got hit and rode off in the vicinity of Penn Road, where he collapsed and was later transported to Carl Hushner. Whilst Guy was fleeing the scene, someone from in that group returned fire.
The Kraal Road Gang was a small but volatile street gang rooted in the Kraal Road area of northwest Belize City. Named after its home turf, the gang's most infamous leader was Raymond Gentle, a feared figure who led the group for several years. Under Gentle's leadership, the gang became known for neighborhood-level criminal activity, including petty drug trafficking, armed robbery, and firearm offenses. In January 2011, Gentle was gunned down at a construction site on Kraal Road in what police believe was a targeted assassination by George Street gang members. His demise came just days after a grenade attack had narrowly missed him, but claimed the life of a young boy, a violent escalation tied to ongoing feuds. Authorities suspected his assassination was a strategic move to end hostilities between rival sets. Ironically, his death did lead to a citywide gang truce that year, briefly reducing violence and restoring an uneasy calm in the area. In 2012, Belize's gang suppression unit raided parts of Kraal Road and seized nearly 400 grams of Mary, believed to be linked to the gang. Gentle himself had previously faced charges related to unlicensed weapons and drugs. However, without their leader and under increasing police pressure, the gang's influence quickly waned. Some members were imprisoned, while others faded into the background. By 2012, locals reported that Kraal Road was keeping the peace, even as they criticized frequent police raids. Over time, the once feared group faded into obscurity, remembered more for its violent peak under Gentle and the brief calm that followed his death. Today, the Kraal Road Gang exists more in police archives than on the streets, a symbol of how leadership loss and state intervention can dismantle even entrenched street crews. Today, Belize's gang crisis is no longer just an imported problem, it's a deeply embedded part of its urban identity, with each neighborhood caught in the grip of long-standing rivalries, shifting alliances, and community trauma. From the once feared Kraal Road Gang, now a shadow of its former self, to the powerful George Street Gang, whose reach still commands fear across the South Side. These groups have shaped both the physical and psychological landscape of Belize City. Efforts at peace, whether through government truce summits or public renunciations like that of Ghost Town's Roger Anthony, have offered fleeting moments of calm. But the deeper roots of inequality, unemployment, and vengeance remain. As international policies, deportations, and drug trade routes continue to influence Belize's street dynamics, the need for sustained reform, social investment, and community healing has never been more urgent. Until then, the streets of Belize City will remain haunted by the ghosts of gang wars, both foreign and homegrown.